Unknown dirty facts about Nazis. 10. Even though they were only in power for 12 years, the Nazis left behind the most infamous legacy in the history of politics. The Holocaust, the Second World War, and the Nazization of German society are all topics that are familiar to people who have little interest in the past. On the other hand, there are still a great deal of facts regarding the Nazis that are not widely known. In addition, the more you study about this terrifying period in human history, the more unsettling it gets to you. One large number of Germans voted for them. Number 5. In the early 1930s, the Nazi Party had a startling level of popularity among the German people. This unsettling reality is something that many people continue to have difficulty comprehending. As a result of Germany's heavy reliance on loans from the United States, the country's economy suffered a significant blow during the Wall Street crash that occurred in October 1929. The rising rate of unemployment led to a rise in criminal activity, and many people were forced to scavenge for food on the streets. An enormous propaganda campaign was initiated by Hitler and the Nazis to take advantage of the situation. They presented their voters with a straightforward choice: either uphold the Weimar Republic, which was on the verge of collapse, or embrace a magnificent future with the Nazi Party. These strategies proved to be successful. During the election that took place in July of 1932, the Nazi Party received 37% of the vote. Although this was not sufficient to secure a majority in the Reichstag, it enabled them to become the most powerful party in the country by a significant margin. The Nazis were able to seize complete control of the situation in March of 1933 by employing sleazy strategies and being intimidating. However, it is essential to keep in mind that before their rise to power, they enjoyed a great deal of support from the general public. Number 4. At the time when Hitler was handed power in January 1933, the Weimar Republic was not a healthy democracy. Even though the Republic was established under a cloud, it was never able to successfully improve the catastrophic economic and political situations that plagued the country. From the very beginning, by the end of 1929, the Republic was in a state of crisis as a result of a slump that significantly exacerbated the situation. A fragmentation of Germany's political and social institutions, which renders the legislative capacity of the German parliament ineffective. During the period beginning in March 1930 and ending in January 1933, Germany was governed by 3 chancellors, the duration of whose terms was increasingly dependent on the favorability of President Paul von Hindenburg. These chancellors rely on Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution, which is an emergency prerogative that allows the president to legitimately authorize a chancellor under certain circumstances. This is because they do not have sufficient parliamentary backing to establish governing coalitions. Hatred of democracy is fueled by the extreme left, KPD, and the extreme right, NSDAP, whose growing power is evidenced by pitched battles in the streets between the paramilitary organizations of both parties. Hatred of democracy is intensifying as a result of the Depression, which is demanding legislation that is extremely unpopular and originates from the office of the Chancellor rather than the Parliament. It is not the Parliament that has the majority of political power, rather, it is a small number of elites who are located near Hindenburg. Number 3. Between the years 1941 and 1945, Nazi Germany and its accomplices planned and carried out a program that was state-sponsored, methodical, and sought to completely eradicate every Jewish man, woman, and child living within the German sphere of influence. This program is known as the Holocaust, Shoah, which is Hebrew for catastrophe. In addition to being one of several possible definitions, this one has the advantage of accurately reflecting the goals and objectives of Nazi policy. It pinpoints the specificity of the target audience as well as the unparalleled scope, everything, of the target audience. People of the Roma and Sinti ethnic groups are subject to the same fate as Jews and ought to be included. Additionally, the year that this particular genocide is recognized as an official policy is specified by this definition. On the other hand, this definition does not take into account the fact that the process of genocide began in 1933 or much before. Other early target groups such as blacks, homosexuals, asocials, and handicapped people are forgotten about because the process of growing Nazi momentum, capability, and skill, as well as expanding goals, is ignored. This involved the shooting and execution of a large number of Polish people in 1939 and black French soldiers in 1940. It is those who suffer the most who suffer the most. When it comes to victimhood, there is no hierarchy. Through the study of the Holocaust, we can concentrate on and pose concerns regarding the processes of genocide, as well as the peculiarity of Nazi utopian ideology amid the numerous instances of Nazi murder and torture throughout history. Number 2. The Holocaust and World War II are not two distinct occurrences. Rather, they are inextricably linked to one another. During the war, Nazi objectives and expectations both grow and change. During the invasion of Poland in September of 1939, mass killing operations were initiated. which resulted in the creation of dilemmas and obstacles that prevented the concept of Lebensraum, geographic expansion, and demographic and ethnic engineering from becoming a reality. When it comes to fighting for race and space in 1939, there are some irritating limits. Ghettos are established as a stopgap solution because Himmler's vision cannot be carried out adequately. The Nisko Plan, which was the intention of the National Socialist Party to accumulate a pool of exploitable slave labor around Lublin, is undermined by competing agendas. Following the defeat of France in May of 1940, the Nazis developed the Madagascar Plan to transport European Jews to Madagascar, where they would be executed. Whenever Britain continues to be involved in the conflict, this approach will fail. Explosives are too filthy, and 14 of 13 vehicles are too burdensome. Thus, the SS is experimenting with different techniques of murder. Reinhard Heydrich presented Hermann Göring with a proposal called a territory yet to be determined on March 26, 1941. The plan calls for deportations to be carried out in the eastern region of Germany. The Soviet Union is the territory under question. The Nazis' invasion of the Soviet Union, which took place on June 22, 1941, will hasten the rate of their murders. On the eve of the invasion, the German army issued the Commissar Order, June 6, 1941, which condoned mass murder. Additionally, Himmler presented General Plan Ost for German settlement, which included the targeting of communities that were to be killed or enslaved. The phrase Holocaust by bullets. The SS, in conjunction with the Wehrmacht, the German army, is responsible for the operation of the Einsatzgruppen, which is thereafter replaced by volunteer workers from countries that were occupied. By the summer and fall of 1941, instructions had been made to kill every Jew, and the last method of execution had arrived in the East in the form of T4 specialists reaching their destination. Number 1. During the 1920s and 1930s, political parties in Europe and the United States were anti-democratic, anti-international, nationalist, and nativist. One example of such a movement is the Nazi Party. As a reaction to the perceived worldwide threat posed by the left, refugee crisis, and the trauma caused by the First World War, each of these groups supports right-wing, authoritarian, and frequently anti-Semitic ideologies. The emphasis of these groups varies, but they all share the same core values. The Nazi Party did not begin to gain traction until after the Great Depression in 1929. By July of that same year, they had reached its pinnacle, becoming the largest of the various political parties with a plurality of 37.4% of the vote. The Nazi Party, on the other hand, suffers a loss of around 2 million votes, dropping to 33.1% in the parliamentary elections that take place in November 1932. Additionally, the Reichstag delegation decreased from 230 to 196 seats. Even though the Nazis continue to be the largest delegation, the loss of support unnerves them and terrifies the conservative right because it is matched by an advance of a similar magnitude for the communist organizations. So this is the end of our today's video. Do you like it? Kindly give your valuable response in our comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and informative videos.